There is a quiet evening, somewhere in another time, where a young poet sits alone by a window. In his hands, he holds a letter, pages filled with gentle, urgent words from a faraway mentor. The room is dim, but for a single lamp, and outside the sky is deep with night. As he reads, the world around him falls away until only the voice in the letter remains, speaking softly to his soul. In 1902, Franz Capus, a 19-year-old military cadet and an aspiring writer, decided to reach out to an alumnus of his school, probably afraid of a profession in the field of art or surrounded with the self-doubt in his abilities. Franz Capus sent his literary work for review to a man who had seemingly made it in this field. In 1903, he received a response and a dialogue was established between a mentor and a mentee. The conversations, in the form of letters, created a conduit of information that would be relevant for years to come. These are the letters of Rainer Maria Rilke, sent to guide a young man through uncertainty. And in this era of loneliness, they provide a truth that each man and woman must accept. From the first letter, the poet's voice beckons the young man into solitude. He urges him to turn inwards, to seek the quiet inner room where his true self waits. Being alone may feel difficult, even painful at times, yet Rilke insists that this is where we finally meet the depths of our own soul. In a world that constantly pushes us to avoid loneliness, he gently declares that solitude is a gift. He suggests that even someone cut off from all human company carries within them an entire sky of their own, suns and stars shining in the mind, waiting to be explored. Within the silence of being by ourselves, an entire hidden universe unfolds. Memories, long forgotten, dreams and doubts, the shy truths of who we really are. This solitude is not easy. Late at night, when sorrow or uncertainty swell like a tide, Rilke advises the young poet to stay with those feelings, to let them wash through him without fear. He notes that when we most wish to flee from loneliness is precisely when our solitude is growing within us, ripening us from the inside. But our sadness and longings, he believes, are not enemies to run from, but teachers to listen to. Each pang of loneliness, each bout of melancholy is like a seed planted in the dark soil of the soul. In time, that seed will take root and bloom into a new understanding. Every grief or confusion held patiently in solitude prepares the heart for growth. In loneliness, we learn who we are, and we learn that we are enough in ourselves. Even the terrors that loom in our isolation, our inner dragons, might really be something helpless or hopeful in disguise. What we fear as monsters in the dark may in truth be tender possibilities waiting for us to meet them with courage and kindness. In these letters, art is never just art, it is life itself. Rilke tells the young poet that to write even a single line of verse, he must first learn to truly see the world around him. Notice the overlooked details, the subtle moments no one stops to observe. The way sunlight creeps along an empty floor in late afternoon, or the sound of rain before dawn. These small, everyday moments hold a universe of meaning for the one who pauses to attend. By cultivating an almost childlike wonder for ordinary life, the young poet will find that the greatest poems are quietly woven into the fabric of each day. His craft will not come from clever technique or from the praise of critics, but from the genuine richness of his own lived moments. Rilke even warns him to stop chasing the verdict of editors or judges on his work, for no outside critique can truly tell him if his poetry is good. Only the young poet's own sincere conviction, his love for the truth he puts and observes into words, can determine that. For Rilke, creating art and living life are not separate at all. To make art is to make a life, to pay attention so deeply that even the mundane becomes sacred. A true poem, a true painting, a true piece of music. None of these is manufactured by following trends or chasing praise. They grow naturally like wildflowers from a soul that has bathed itself in real experience. So the poet encourages his young friend to live richly, to read and walk and watch and listen, to fill himself up with the real sense and sounds of the earth. If he can live with open eyes and an open heart, then art will flow from him as surely and freely as breath. In this way, art becomes not a product or achievement, but a way of being, a daily practice of finding the most beautiful and meaningful in the world. After guiding his young friend toward inner strength, Rilke turns to the subject of love. Love, too, he says, is difficult, perhaps the most difficult task of all. For one human being to love another is a great challenge demanding the full strength of our being. It is, in Rilke's eyes, the ultimate work of life, the task to which all other endeavors are a mere preparation. Yet, this very difficulty is exactly what makes love so worthwhile. In these letters, we sense Rilke pushing back against the way society commonly approaches romance. Too often, people enter relationships seeking to escape their own loneliness, clutching at each other out of fear. But that kind of desperate merging only leads to disappointment and loss of self. Real love, as the poet describes it, is a liberating force. It is when two souls come together not to lose themselves, but to help each other become more fully themselves. He imagines a bond where each partner stands guard over the solitude of the other, protecting each other's growth. In such a love, holding one another close never means stifling. It means giving space and freedom, even as you embrace. Rilke offers the image of two solitudes side by side, each sheltering the other without ever ceasing to be separate. Each remains a whole world, and yet they share their skies, their sorrows, and their joys in mutual reverence. This vision of love is as beautiful as it is demanding. It asks for patience, for independence, and for profound generosity of heart. True love is not a constant thrill or an easy comfort. It is a creative partnership between two brave souls. Such lovers learn from each other, mirror each other, yet never cease tending to their own gardens. This kind of love may be rare. Perhaps humanity is still learning how to fully realize it, but Rilke believes in its possibility. A love that makes both people larger and more luminous than they ever could be alone. To strive towards this love, to learn slowly how to give and receive in such a way, is one of life's greatest hopes and one of its sacred responsibilities. Rilke's guidance constantly returns to the idea that life's deepest truths cannot be rushed. Much of a life is mystery, he admits, far less comprehensible than we like to think. Most people feel anxiety in the face of the unknown. We want clear answers, immediate direction, certainty. But the poet gently advises his young friend to embrace the unknown, to love it. The unanswered questions in our hearts are like unwritten books or rooms in twilight meant to be lived in, not solved overnight. Instead of fearing what we don't understand, he suggests we lean into it with curiosity. Even questions of God or faith, he implies, should be held in the same spirit, not as puzzles to be solved by logic, but as mysteries to be lived with and pondered in one's soul. He urges the young poet to trust that there is meaning in our uncertainty, and that one day in the future the answers will quietly emerge. Perhaps without even noticing, we will live our way into the clarity we seek. Central to this is the virtue of patience. He reminds the young poet that every idea and every feeling must quietly grow, unseen, before it can be born into reality. A new insight, a new poem, even a new self must gestate slowly within us, like a child in the womb, before it can be brought forth into the world. So he urges him to be patient with every unresolved feeling and unanswered question. Do not force resolutions. Allow them to mature at their natural pace. In practicing this patience, the young poet will learn to trust the process of life. He will begin to cultivate a quiet faith in his own journey, an assurance that his truth will unfold when it is ready. And with that self trust comes a kind of peace, a sense that he's exactly where he needs to be, even in uncertainty. As the young poet folds away the final letter, he is no longer the same person who first sat down in the lamplight. Through Rilke's words, he has walked through solitude and found it friendly. He has tasted his own suffering and discovered it was not poison but nourishment in disguise. He has learned to notice the gleam of the ordinary and realize that art lives in every breath of life. He has felt the great weight and wonder of love and knows now that love will ask much of him, but give even more in return. And he has begun to accept that life will always hold mysteries beyond understanding, and that this is not a thing to fear. In the stillness of that early morning hour, a quiet awe falls upon him. The sky outside is filled with dawn, and each new shape of the waking world seems filled with meaning. He senses that he is something vast and unfathomable, a single note in a boundless symphony. And yet, within that immensity, he feels a profound peace. The questions within him, the hopes and heartaches, the longings for connection is still alive. In this gentle dawn light, solitude no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like the presence of something divine and indescribable, something that connects him to every other soul. He understands now that he carries his own guidance, his own solitude like a lamp through the dark. We too close these letters with a sense of reverence. Rilke's voice, with all its wisdom and tenderness, has been speaking not just to a young poet a century ago, but to the most striving and solitary parts of ourselves. We have been invited into a deeper contemplation of life, of its pain and its beauty, its unanswered question and its quiet joys. We have been reminded that within us there is a strength to endure loneliness, courage to face uncertainty, and an immense capacity to love. And as we step back into our everyday lives, perhaps we carry a new tenderness for our own journey. In the end, Rilke leaves us with more than advice, he leaves us with a feeling. It is a feeling that, for all its unresolved mysteries and difficulties, life is breathtaking and worthy of our trust. We walk away from his world as if leaving a high mountain clearing where the air is crisp and the horizon endless. There is a sense of the sacred in the simple fact of being alive. We feel, in a word, transformed. Not because all our questions are answered, but because we are learning to live with those questions, to embrace our solitary path, and to stand in awe before the great mystery that we call life.